Hello, viewers, and welcome back to the Doctor Who Hit or Miss podcast. Thanks for joining us. This is episode 8 of our second series, and I am joined, as always, by my usual co-host,
Mr. Hi, hey everyone.
It's Andy Kemp. There, we've had a bit of a morning of it trying to record.
Oh, jeez, we spent nearly an hour trying to get this sorted. My God,
we've had some technical issues, and So if we all seem very frazzled and out of it first, that's why we've been trying for a while, but we're there now. Anyway, we're both pleased to announce we have another returning guest from Series 1 of the podcast, Mr. Ben Tyler. Say hello, Ben.
Woo!
Hello.
Thunderous applause. Woo! And Ben, he's really excited to be here. He's been messaging me for weeks with ideas and concepts and stuff. So I've been keen to get this one in the books, so to speak, because I know that he's a good deed. So
you don't have a habit of bringing back old guests.
We're trying not to do it as much because it kind of seems unfair to people. So we're trying to balance old and new. But Ben's a nice guy, and he was really excited when we offered him up the chance. And like I said,
mate, you literally made me your co-host.
Well, that was different. And to be fair, that was because Will was like, "Do you want to take over Series 2? But I won't be there." And I'm like, "On my own, no, no thanks. I need a co-host." But yeah, so no, you had Will's seal of approval as well. Don't you worry about that. Anyway, so I don't know if this is your first time listening to us. We've had a couple of big name guests, so it may be. If it is, just to let you know that the format is the usual this week, where we basically start with a little bit of news, then we break into a hit or miss section. I've done 6 hit or misses this week. Hopefully we can get through those, and then we review an episode, which this week is a 12th Doctor episode. It's Jimmy Matheson's Mummy on the Orient Express.
Woo!
So yeah, keep a listen out for that. Time codes is always in the description. And I should clarify that I will be handing the review over to you, Andrew, to take the lead. Yeah.
Yep, I know. Yep.
Awesome.
I'll try and do my best.
That's fine. I still have plenty of notes and stuff. It was just I felt bad because we haven't really given you a chance to shine as much this series. But
it's fine, Andrew. How do you mean you haven't given me a chance to shine? Have you heard the things I've come out with in the episodes where you gave me some spotlight?
Yeah, it's probably best we don't give you too much of a chance to get carried away, isn't it?
I think the Asylum of the Daleks episode kind of proved that point.
Yeah. Ben, have you heard any of the past episodes?
The first few I listened to, because I mainly listened to them the morning after when I was doing my schoolwork in the morning.
All right.
Oh, he won't know the joys of Daleks or the Masters of Girth.
Leave me in the goo that
I've got to admit, though, I did hear about Kylie.
Oh, just
because George wouldn't let it die. It did make me happy when I can't remember what tweet it was a reply to, but the official account put out a tweet and George responded with like, "It was good but not enough Kylie," and I'm like, yes, he's not letting the joke die. It lives.
I think it was Will had posted out, we're going to do a top 10 moments from the series at the end of the series, and what's the odds that like 9 out of 10 of them will involve Kylie? But anyway, that's slightly off topic. So
top 10 Kylies of the series.
Oh yeah, top 10 mentions of Kylie Minogue being chucked down a
You said Kylie Minogue, then have you got Phil's version in your head, Mike?
I really have. Well, I'll get into the news anyway. And I will say that there's only a couple of bits of news today, but they're both weirdly kind of linked. They're the same genre of news. And the first one is that despite rumours that Funko were abandoning their Doctor Who license, Doctor Who came to the mobile game Funko Pop Blitz this week. And if you haven't played it, I can recommend. It is annoyingly addictive, and it's not easy to get your hands on, on the virtual Doctor Who Funkos, but I am pleased to say that I did get the 12th Doctor, who I'm currently using to play the game. It's a match 3 puzzle game, so it's not complicated or anything.
Oh, okay.
You basically sort of work your way through playing a heck of a lot if you're dumb like me, just playing constantly to try and save up enough sort of coins to try and buy the various Funkos of the Doctors. They do have Doctors 9, 10, 11, 12, and of course the current one, Jodie. Excuse me. But I do think the 11th Doctor was an exclusive that you can only get by doing some particular event within the next few days. And it's a shame because he's really cool and he's got his mop and his fez.
What's the damn point of me playing it then?
Well, I'm imagining that by the sounds of it, they'll probably just replace that one with a regular 11th Doctor without the accessories. I don't think they'll abandon him completely. But I can't say that for sure, so don't take my word for that. But yeah, I was telling Will the funkiest thing is that all of the various Funkos that you can play the game with have like stickers that you can collect along with the stuff on your match 3. And they're all appropriate to that character. And for the 12th Doctor, one of the 4 stickers you have to collect is Mr. Huffle from Return of Dr. Mysterio, which I was not expecting. So that was a nice, pleasant surprise. The others all make sense, like the Sonic sunglasses and the 2 Zygon boxes and his ring that he wears. But yeah, Mr. Huffle was an odd sticker to see there.
Nah, in Series 13, Jodie should just be in the TARDIS and all of a sudden she just whips out Mr. Huffle.
Mr. Huffle can feel pain. Yaz. Yeah, as I say, that game is free to download. So I'm not sponsored or anything or advertising it, but it is fun if you're into that kind of thing.
Other mobile games are available.
Speaking of Doctor Who games, as I was, also out this week was the game Doctor Who: The Lonely Assassins, a mobile game where you basically have found a virtual phone and you are helping Osgood to try to find Larry Nightingale from Blink, and there's Weeping Angels involved. And I'll be honest, I haven't got this one because it asked me for £2.99, and I was like, cheek of asking for money, how dare you? So I haven't downloaded this one. Plus, I've been spending all my time trying to work through Funko Pop Blitz to get some more of the Doctors. But have either of you guys downloaded and played the Lonely Assassins game?
Not yet. I was kind of intrigued to see what it would be like, though, because for those of you who don't know, I love the Weeping Angels. They're pulling my Is that really basic bitch of me to say, oh, they're my favourite Doctor Who villain? They are awesome. And I'm always happy to have more of them, so I might have to look into it.
It's a fair enough opinion. It's quite a common one. It's good. So, Ben, what about you?
I wasn't originally going to get it simply because of the money side of things. I was like, nah, you're not having my money.
Yeah. So,
but then I was on Twitter and my DMs popped up, and basically Mayfair just turned around and said, oh yeah, here's a code to get it for free.
Oh, how did that happen?
They said it was some sort of giveaway.
Okay, wow.
So I've got the game, and I've completed it already, and I'd actually say it's a pretty good game. The overall story is quite good.
Okay, cool. I've heard good things. A lot of people on Twitter have been posting things about it and just said it's really good. And, you know, there's a few little Easter eggs and things that I won't spoil that people have kind of been spoiling on Twitter, but it's kind of neat. Yeah, I don't know. I probably will end up getting it, I think. Yeah, anyway, that was just a little bit of news with the Doctor Who World actual product releases. So that was fun to see, and actually featuring, for the most part, the current Doctor, although Funko Pop's kind of the 5 most recent, but never mind. So yeah, if you guys are happy to, I'm gonna move us into the hit or miss section.
Yes, definitely.
Awesome. You guys know how it works. I'll shout out something to you. You tell me if you think it's a hit or a miss, a little bit about why, and we tend to go guest, co-host, then me. So it'll be Ben, Andrew, me. So I'll jump us straight in with number 1. By the way, a few of these are suggestions from Ben, so they might not be super surprising to him. But the first thing
I'm going to be honest, I can only actually remember suggesting one.
Well, I think this is going to be this one. So the first thing on the list, if you listeners are familiar with it, is the short video, The Ballad of Russell and Julie, which, just as a quick explanation, it was a video that Catherine Tate, David Tennant and John Barrowman did as a kind of goodbye gift to the departing Russell T Davies and Julie Gardner. And it's basically in the style of the old Victoria Wood piano musicals, sort of, let's do it.
Let's do it. I've had a really good idea.
Yes.
We'll revamp, make more campus sci-fi show from yesteryear. I haven't seen it like 25 times.
It's I've seen it a lot as well. I can't believe I doubted you for a second because I was like, so we've got to watch this.
My absolute favourite part is when David as Russell is getting more and more stressed and he ends up with like 10 cigarettes in each hand. Yeah. That bit's marvellous. I am not a smoker and don't advocate smoking, but that bit's very funny.
The only reason I suggested this is because the other week I was listening to all the episodes of this podcast, and the first suggested underneath was that.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
So they're really linking it to us then.
And I literally just thought, right, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So anyway, we'll go to you first, Ben, and say hit or miss for the Ballad of Russell and Julie. What do you reckon?
Definitely a hit, because just the song in general, it's such a fun concept and a fun song, and all three of them, David, Catherine, and John, are brilliant in it, even though it's just a short little song.
Yeah. Do you have any favourite lines or anything from it yourself then?
Probably the bit I can't remember which one of them say it. I think it's Russell. He goes something like, "In such and such says there's no costumes in the whole of England."
Hang on, I've got the lyrics up here, so I'm going to try and find that because I love this.
Yeah, I was just about to do the same for you.
Hang on. Oh, you know what? I'm actually not. I'm going to do this because this fits into us so well. Andy, you could probably do this better, but I'll give it my best.
Okay, go on.
I can't do it. You've cast Australia's pop princess. Your sadness will make this episode a mess. My panic is manic. The uproar when I kill her off on the Titanic.
I can't do it tonight. And she expelled. Let's do it. The doctor needs a brand new mate. Don't linger. Go, Ginger. I'm gonna bring back Catherine Tate. Sorry, I know this thing way too well.
Reunite the doctor with the fabulous Donna.
You've got to sing it how she does it. You're gonna reunite the doctor with the fabulous Donna. Let's do it tonight.
So what, is this a musical episode of the podcast now?
Apparently so.
I mean, I'm on it. It's always a musical episode with me.
And Kylie Died always seems to find a way to get in.
I know, right? I'm trying to find the line you said about the costumes, because I remember it ends with there are no costumes in the whole of England. They say it like that to make it rhyme, and I can't remember what the line is.
Yeah, that's the reason I remember it, because of how to say it.
Oh, I'm trying to find... it'll get panned, it'll be panned. Lou says there's no costumes in the whole of England. Also, just because this is a nice jab at Doctor Who, like classic Who is, it's not silly to ask Billy will fill me in every quarry from here to Caerphilly. Like, that's accurate.
I also quite like the line, right, we'll bring back Captain Jack to fight against the Cybermen, and then you must think, oh yeah, Russell just thought, oh yeah, we'll do that, but we'll shove it in Torchwood and sort of just change the design entirely.
Oh, yes. But yeah, anyway, so that was a bit of a diversion. But Andy, the Ballad of Russell and Julie hit.
It's great. I love it. I've loved it for years. It's marvelous.
Awesome. I don't have my soundboard up because of all of the tech problems. But I will say for now, I'll get it ready for next time. But I'll say for now that I also, surprising nobody, I also think it's a great hit. The Victoria Wood sort of
absolutely fantastic.
That
sounded more like David Attenborough than Christopher Eccleston.
It sounded very Welsh. No, I do. I think it's
absolutely fantastic.
There we go.
Yes, you just get David Attenborough in the TARDIS going.
I'd like to point out, I am from the north of England. Christopher Eccleston's, I think it's from, I want to say from Lancashire. Please don't kill me if I'm wrong.
I think it's from Salford, for what it's worth.
It might be Manchester, actually, yeah. But like, I have a northern accent. I shouldn't have had to try to put on a voice to do 9. But I did, and it sounded Welsh, apparently, so there you go.
Before I go, I just want to say you were fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And I'm from Newcastle.
From Salford.
Yeah, Salford. But I also think Ballad of Julie's great. Like I said, it's great to have a tribute to the late, great Victoria Wood, who was brilliant at that. Everybody's game for a laugh. There's costumes, there's, as we say, many of them funny sort of lines and stuff. And it's surprisingly catchy. So there you go.
Can I just say,
very catchy.
Moffat's exit as showrunner really wasn't as grand as Russell's, because with Russell you have the 500 miles thing, but then with Moffat you don't have nothing. You just have Capaldi regenerating and boom.
I think Moffat was so tired by that point.
Can you just imagine someone doing it about Moffat instead?
I think it's because he was running sort of Sherlock and everything at the same time.
Yeah, he was spinning so many plates at once that by the time he left Doctor Who, I think it was like, I'm just going to lie down for a few years.
I'm just going to walk out and hope nobody notices.
But speaking of Sherlock, and again, on Ben's request, number 2 on this list, Mark Gatiss. Hit or
I should have seen this coming. I was looking at your Twitter account earlier and I was like, oh, he likes Mark Gatiss and Reece Shearsmith. Does that mean, by any chance, that you like A, The League of Gentlemen, or B, Inside Number 9, or both?
I was about to say, how about I put one and one together and just say both?
Yeah, I personally prefer Inside Number 9 just because I love the style, but League of Gentlemen is also great. Ben, Mark Gatiss.
Oh, massive hit. His episodes are, in my opinion, some of the most underrated pieces of modern Who ever.
Awesome. Yeah. Do you have a favourite out of? Because he's obviously written quite a few episodes for the show. So
I've probably got a few separate favourites, but overall, if I had to pick just 2 or 3, it'd probably be The Idiot's Lantern, Night Terrors.
Okay, wow, that's a surprising one, but okay.
And The Crimson Horror.
Oh, that's very surprising. A lot of people don't tend to like that one, but yeah, interesting. But you're saying overall, you think Mark Gatiss in terms of his Doctor Who work, you're going to say hit, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
Just for sort of posterity's sake, I'll also bring up the couple of acting roles and say, what did you think about his roles as Lazarus and as Captain Lethbridge Stewart in Twice Upon a Time?
He was also in Wedding of River Song.
He was, but he was credited as Rondo Haxton. I was going to bring that up.
I'm not too keen on his earlier performances like Lazarus and Gantok. Like, he's all right in them, but he's not the best. But with the Captain, I did think he gave a really strong performance in overall.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's weird because, I mean, like I said, there's a lot of episodes that he's written, and I think yours probably are ones that wouldn't necessarily everyone wouldn't agree with. But it's always good to get sort of different opinions and see different people's thoughts. So you're saying hate overall? That's fair.
Yeah. I mean, I don't
Andy,
want anyone to hate me, but The Crimson Horror is one of my favourite Smith episodes.
Andy, what about you? Can you hear me first of all? And what
Yeah,
about
I can still hear you. Okay, so Mark Gatiss, overall, definitely a hit. I would argue, I'm sorry, Ben's going to hate me for this. I think the only bad episode he did was The Idiot's Lantern. I do not like it. Never have, probably never will. I'm sorry, Ben. I just personally do not like it. But I do agree that I think a lot of his episodes, for the most part, do get some like undeserved hate. So like I didn't get to take part in the podcast the week you talked about this because I was ill, but you discussed Robot of Sherwood when you had Rebecca on, and I like the Robot of Sherwood. I think a lot of his episodes can boil down to, none of them are like fantastic, but most of them are at least really fun. If I had to choose a favourite, I couldn't choose between The Unquiet Dead and Empress of Mars. I think they're his 2 strongest ones. But just going down the list, I love The Unquiet Dead. Idiot's Lantern can burn in a fire. Victory of the Daleks. I should hate Victory of the Daleks. It is without a doubt the weakest episode of Series 5. But it has a charm to it that it makes me like it, even though it's kind of naff. Like, as an overall concept. Night Terrors, I think, is really underrated. I really like Night Terrors, and it's creepy as hell. Cold War, I really like. Crimson Horror, I really like. Robot of Sherwood is a lot of fun. Sleep No More, it's not the best episode, but I appreciate what it was trying to do, and I love The Empress of Mars.
Okay,
Can I also add in Mark Gatiss' brilliant writing for An Adventure in Space and Time?
Of course,
Yes.
that didn't even occur to me, but absolutely.
I've only just remembered that he wrote that.
Yeah, no, that is easily his best work. I for the show. I think
that's definitely his strongest thing he's done for the show.
Yeah, for sure. Have you heard, by the way, Ben, of I shouldn't say heard, I should say, have you read any of his other work? Because I know he's done a couple of big Finnish plays that he wrote, and I know he wrote a book called Last of the Gadarene, of the Doctor book.
I haven't read or heard much of his other Doctor Who work. I've heard Invaders from Mars, which I think he wrote.
I think I just downloaded that the other day for half price, so I might have that now.
Yeah, I think that's the only expanded media of his that I've actually experienced. And once the strongest, it was probably, in my opinion, the weakest of McGann's second series of audios. But I do think it was still fun for what it was.
Fair enough. It does have Simon Pegg and Jessica Hines / Stevenson in it as well, doesn't it? So
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm intrigued by Last of the Gadarene because I know that Gatiss likes that era, and it's available for like £2 on Google Play Books.
Yeah.
So I'm tempted to download it, but yeah. Have you seen by the way, just one last thing, the comedy sketches that he did with sort of David Williams, where he was the
Doctor
he's a very
third
Doctor like that.
99, wasn't it?
That's the one. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, the Web of Caves, the Pitch of Fear, and then the other one. Oh,
that's
the
so
kidnapping.
Yeah. How about you, Andy? Have you seen any of these other stuff that aren't related to the main canon of the show?
No, I don't think I have.
We'll have to send you the link to, at the very least, the Doctor Who night sketches with him and
I don't know.
Lloyd.
You might have it, but the An Unearthly Child DVD.
Mm-hmm.
The 3 sketches with Gatiss and Williams are on that. The special.
I knew they were on something, but I wasn't sure where, and I was like, "Is it the 50th anniversary box set?"
No, it's
the
An Unearthly Child DVD.
Awesome, sweet. Well. So yeah. So Andy, overall hit on this for Mark Gatiss?
Overall, a hit.
Awesome. I'm just gonna work through some issues like I'm in therapy here, because I don't know how I feel right now, but I'll try and go through it. I'll say that obviously, just before the Doctor Who show, I think Adventure in Space and Time is so good that you've got to, really prop that up right there. So in terms of the show, let's think. Unquiet Dead, loved. The Idiot's Lantern's fine. I don't have any real issue with it. It's inoffensive. It's not the greatest. It's not the worst. And then what was the next one?
Victory of the Daleks.
Victory of the Daleks.
Yeah, Victory of the Daleks was trash, I'm afraid. Sorry. Night Terrors was also terrible, in my opinion. I didn't like that either. But
Cold War.
I love Cold War and Empress of Mars.
Crimson Horror.
Yeah, Crimson Horror is good, I would say, overall. Again, not the greatest, but it was enjoyable.
Robot Sherwood.
No offense to anyone that finds problems with Crimson Horror, but Robot of Sherwood I didn't like, but it's one of those where I think, as you're talking about it, I think it would have been if it was placed in a different series or at a different point. But it's really tonally jarring because it's at that period and Capaldi was kind of being a bit of a jerk, as we'll probably get into later. But not a slight miss for me on Robot of Sherwood. And I think that's everything, isn't it?
Can I also add in? Have any of you two
Sleep No More?
Oh, okay. Sleep No More. I'm on the fence about. It's growing on me, like we say. Yeah, Ben, go ahead. Sorry,
have any
Ben.
of you two heard Gatiss as the unbound master in the audios?
No, I didn't know about his unbound master.
Yeah, he plays the master that comes from the same universe as David Warner's Third Doctor.
Oh yeah, cool.
And he was also in Masterful.
Yeah, I'll keep a lookout for that. I think he's good when he acts, but I won't get into too much of it, but I loved the Captain, shall we say. I hated one of the other roles, but I do think he's good. Not that it's Doctor Who related, but it's tangential. I think he's good in Sherlock as Mycroft as well. So.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
So having run through all of that, I think I will have to go Mark Gatiss.
Well, yes. Tick.
Yeah, I'll say soft hit. I think it's very hit and miss, no pun intended. But overall, just for the few things that I really love, and especially for Adventure in Space and Time, it's got to be a hit. So number 3 is the first thing that Ben didn't specifically request on the hit on
exciting.
Number 3 is the character of Zoe Herriot, the companion of the Second Doctor. So Ben, what do you think of Zoe?
It's a difficult one because I haven't seen too much of her. I think I've seen 3 stories with her. Yeah.
Okay, which ones, out of curiosity?
I've seen The Invasion, The Crotons, and The War Games. But from what I've seen, I do think she's a relatively strong companion. I like the whole aspect that she's from the future and that she's also like quite intelligent, almost rivaling the Doctor's own intelligence.
Well, if you've seen the Crotons, you'll have seen that scene where she basically beats the test that the Croton set, like better than the Doctor and quicker and easier. So
I like that idea. I do.
Yeah, completely. I take it you haven't seen any kind of version of the Wheel in Space.
I've seen that animated cut down of episode 1, which doesn't even feature her, but that's it.
Yeah, that's a shame because she's good in that. When that's her introduction as the kind of future computer whiz kind of thing. But So anyway, from the 3 episodes you've seen, then if I had to, gun to your head, what would you say for hit or miss for Zoe?
From what I've seen, I'd say she's a hit. I've also got Seeds of Death on DVD. I've just never got around seeing it.
That's one of my top sort of 3 or 4 classic Doctor Who stories. I don't know why, but there's something about it that I just absolutely love. So you may well adore that if you're anything like me. Love that story. Anyway, Andy, we're off topic. Zoe, the companion. What do you think?
Haven't seen that much of it. I've pretty much only seen bits of her in the bits of the War Games that I have seen. She seemed pretty good from the bits that I've seen, but I don't think I've really seen enough to be able to pass a proper opinion.
Yeah.
I really
Okay.
need to. I really need to do, especially now that we're doing the podcast. I'm gonna have to do like a full watch through of all of Classic Who, but that requires motivation that I don't always have.
That's what I'm currently doing, and I'm almost at the end of the Troughton era, filling in my gaps because I just have the War Games to go, which I'm hoping to start today. I've never seen it, and I'm
The
excited.
War Games is so long.
It's 10 parts, I know.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna watch the whole thing, especially having sit through 4 hours of a movie I hated recently. But no,
I do want to.
I can guess what that movie was.
Yeah, let's not.
I do want to go through all of Classic myself eventually, but simply I really don't have the motivation just simply because I prefer watching them on my actual TV to DVD, and I don't have them all. But
No.
I have recently managed to complete all of McCoy's on DVD, so I think I'm going to watch his era just alone, separately, all in one.
That's cool. But yeah, I think it's best. It's probably not for me to say, but I think if you can do that, I think filling in the gaps per Doctor is always kind of fun, even if it's not in order. So at least you can say, "Oh, I've seen all of McCoy's era or whatever." I'm proud to say that once I've watched the War Games, I'll have seen every episode. Actually, not quite. I've seen every episode of Hartnell, and I'll have seen every episode of Troughton except the Web of Fear because I'm waiting for the Blu-ray and I don't want to spoil it.
I have watched some of the recons online before, by that I mean for one story, and I did actually quite enjoy the actual story, which was good.
Which story was it?
The Abominable Snowmen, Troughton.
I didn't love that one. I would have to. I'm hoping it gets animated because I think I might reappraise it if I can see a bit more.
I think I'll enjoy it more animated, but I still did enjoy it for what it was with the recon.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in it. Yeah, and it's always funny hearing the behind-the-scenes stuff about how Deborah Watling's dad was just basically picking on her and teaming up with Patrick and Fraser to tease him mercilessly. Anyway, again, we're wildly off topic, but Andy, from what you've seen of Zoe, which probably isn't that much by the sounds of it, but from what you've seen, hit or miss?
From what I've seen, a hit. I just don't think I can give a definitive answer.
Fair enough. Well, we'll say a soft hit then, and I will go ahead. If I can pull up my co-host, Mr. Soundboard, I will go ahead and say...
Absolutely fantastic.
I really love the character of Zoe. I think she suffers because she's not Victoria, if that makes sense, and Victoria is so popular, and rightly so. She's a really good companion, but Victoria wasn't super well served. I think Deborah Watlings even said part of the reason she left was because being a character from the past or whatever and being created to be that, she was often just screaming and needing to be rescued, and I can kind of see that. And that's the thing I love about Zoe is that she's not that character at all. She's like super hyper intelligent, very capable, great with computers, from the future, which was a surprising thing at the time, I think, for Doctor Who. I think she was the first companion that wasn't from sort of the present or the past. And she's just very capable. And Wendy Padbury's just really charming and really nice and a very good actress, in my opinion. So, yeah, I can say that because having reached the War Games, I think I've seen basically every Zoe thing more or less now. So I think, solid work, and it's definitely a hit for me. So, you guys are very quiet. Have I said something really offensive again?
No, I'm just letting you talk.
I just want to add as well, that actual TARDIS team, from what I've seen of two, Jamie and Zoe, I do quite like, because I like the idea that you've got sort of this man from the past, which is Jamie, you've got this girl from the future, Zoe, and then you've got this just traveller in all of time who just sort of guides them through time, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's an idea they should do more of, because you're right, it's so cool that it's kind of one from the past, one from the future. Which, not to crap on a lot of people, I don't think there's a bad Troughton team, and a lot of people love, second Doctor Jamie and Victoria, and Jamie and Victoria definitely have that kind of romantic chemistry thing going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so interesting, as you said, because those polar opposites are brilliant. But anyway, we'll move on. Number 4 is, and I will explain here, it's the Supreme Dalek. And by that, I mean the red one with the gold highlights and stuff that you first appeared in the Stolen Earth. And then I think also appeared in Magician's Apprentice, which is familiar, possibly other places. So,
yes, and it's been in some audios because I've listened to it as well. I think
the 4th and 10th Doctor team up it was in.
Yeah, Out of Time, that's the one I meant.
Yeah.
I think the actual, I don't know, to me, the Supreme Dalek, it doesn't really do nothing other than really be a different design.
Yeah, I've never seen it move, which is like slightly worrying. It's very, it just sits on a pedestal there.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, like it's Stolen Earth and Journey's End, like you say, it sat on a pedestal just telling other Daleks what to do and stuff, and just like saying stuff to the Doctor and everything.
Yeah, so I think it's fair enough to say you don't like the function, then, but what about the design of it?
I like the design. I think the design's quite actually quite nice. I do. I just think that in general, it don't really do nothing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, okay.
I'd give it a miss.
Okay, we'll say soft miss then, probably for that one. So, yeah, Andy, what about you, the Supreme Dalek, the red fella?
I kind of I agree with what Ben said, where it really doesn't do much in the stories it has appeared in. It just kind of stands there and just shouts. Oh God, it's me. But I think the design is quite cool. I love the red and gold color scheme. It definitely stands out. Again, I'd say a soft hit. Like the design wise, I really like it, so I can't fault it for that. It's just the fact that it just doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Completely. Okay, so one soft hit, one soft miss. I will go ahead and say
Not bad at all.
yeah, I'll echo Tennant's works. I'll also say soft hit. I don't love that we never see it move or do anything, but the design's really cool. I wasn't sure about it at first because of those big like gold clamps. But yeah, the more I see of it, the more I really like the design. It's not the best Supreme Dalek. I think the one from the third Doctor's era is a really cool sort of Supreme design.
Yeah,
it's almost entirely kind of a faded gold. But yeah, there's something, because it's so unique, that sort of red and gold boy. And when he appears, shit's got real, basically. So I think that's kind of cool. But I would like to see him do a little bit more. Like I said, he's not even the best Supreme
Watch it
Dalek,
now, because it don't move. They'll go back to Skaro after the events of the series 9 open, and the remains of the cage will just still be clamped down on that pedestal.
Yeah, that was, I mean, fair enough in the Stolen Earth because it's kind of leading the fleet from the ship and stuff. But in Magician's Apprentice, when they're all over that room and it's just
I know, you just had all sorts of different Daleks, and that was just sitting up there, just like doing nothing.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, we'll still see because one soft miss, two soft hits. We'll say soft hit for that Supreme Dalek. 5 out of 6 today for the hit or miss section is the story you mentioned it earlier. It's the second Doctor story, The Invasion. So Ben, what do you think of that?
I think it's decent. I don't think it's the best by any means. I think it can at certain points it does drag a little.
Yeah, it's a lot of parts.
Because of how many parts it is. I think the animation they used to do for the DVD is also all right. But overall, I think the actual story, because I think the Doctor, Zoe, and Jamie are still brilliant in it as they are throughout that season, from what I've seen. And I also think the Brigadier and Unit are quite good in it. And I also quite like Tobias Vaughan. I think that's his name.
The villain. Yeah, no, you're right. Absolutely. Tobias Vaughan.
I quite like him as a villain in it. And I think the Cybermen are pretty decent in it too.
Okay, so
overall, I wouldn't say it's anything special, but I would still probably give it a hit.
So soft hit, probably. I think it's fair to say for that one. Okay, Andrew. First of all, have you seen The Invasion?
No, I haven't.
I'm so sorry. I should think about this before I do the section.
That's fine.
I'm really sorry. You're not even familiar with the really iconic shot of the Cybermen at St. Paul's Cathedral?
No, I'm familiar with that because that's what they recreated in Dark Water, isn't it?
It is, absolutely, yeah.
I'm familiar with that shot.
Basically, what happens is there's an invasion.
You know what? Funnily enough, I could have pieced that together for myself.
It might have been sarcastic. It could have been the invasion, and in actual fact, the Cybermen just sit there.
The humans are actually invading the Cybermen.
Anyway, well, we'll let you sit this one out. Then we'll see you abstain since you haven't really seen it. Very boring, but I'll probably agree with Ben and say
not bad at all.
It's at least 1, maybe 2 episodes too long. But the missing animated episodes that were done, I think, by Cosgrove Hall are really well done. And it holds your attention. I've seen people argue it's not really a Cyberman story, and I can kind of see their point because the Cybermen don't do as much as they perhaps could. But yeah, Tobias Vaughan and the Cyber Controller are really good villains, even though Tobias Vaughan's meant to be partly converted into a Cyberman, and you don't see any evidence of that.
Is
You know,
he?
yeah, they mention like he's part converted and he's part Cyberman, but then they say something like, "Oh, don't worry, it's something to do with his mind, so that's why you can't see anything because they couldn't afford to do much with it."
I must have totally missed that.
I'm sure that's the. I could be. I'm now doubting myself and could be very wrong, but I'm sure there was a plot thread about, oh, he's a half conversion, but he's still human, but he has the mind of a cyber or something
Also,
along those lines.
Shout out to one of my favourite producers, James Goss, who produced the 2 animated episodes.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Pretty decent guy.
Yeah. He's a really good dude. He did a lot of the Time Lord Victoria stuff and everything as well.
Yeah, I interviewed him recently for a thing I do.
Oh, awesome. Where can we find that then? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, it's not published yet. It's going to be.
Oh.
There's this thing called Whovian Tamino, and I'm on it, and I'm working for this paper. So I did an interview with him.
Awesome. That's cool. Yeah, going back to the invasion, I love the iconic sort of Cyberman, invasion, the steps of St. Paul's and the sewers and everything. And yeah, UNIT are great in this story, and it's the first. As I said, I haven't yet seen the Web of Fear, so it's my first exposure chronologically to the Brigadier and UNIT and everything. And I think they're really good. They hold the attention when the Cybermen aren't there, which is a bit too often.
Can I also just say, all these aliens seem to love their sewers. The Cybermen climb out the sewers. The Daleks have sewers.
Yeah, the Weevils live in the sewers in Torchwood.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think the invasion overall, it's not my favorite Cyberman story, but I know it is some people's, but it's definitely, I'm going to say, a hit. So we'll say hit for that one. And I will carry on into, I think, if I can get my notes up. Yep, one last thing. The sixth of the 6 hit or miss sections for today is the episode The Lazarus Experiment.
Oh.
So, Ben, again, you mentioned, put as much Gator stuff in as possible.
Right.
So I did. Thoughts?
Gatiss' acting isn't his best. The actual episode, aside from his acting and the CGI, we'll just remove the CGI.
Yeah.
The actual episode and like the story of it, and even like David Tennant's and Freeman Adjaman's acting, I actually think that actual whole episode as a whole. Yeah, I don't know why I keep saying whole, but yeah, the actual episode I think is actually quite a good episode.
Okay, fair enough. So if you had to say one way or the other, hit or miss, what do you reckon?
I'd say hit. Though part of the story I don't like, and that's where it just seems like they basically thought, oh yeah, we've got time left, so we'll just bring Lazarus back again at the end.
Well, he is called Lazarus. I suppose they were fitting the theme, but yeah. Anyway, so Andrew, it's a new Who episode, so I'm assuming you've actually seen this one.
That felt like a dig.
It really wasn't. I'm sorry. I was just having a bit of fun.
Yes, I have seen the Lazarus Experiment.
Okay, and what did you think?
It's the weakest episode of an actually pretty decent series, in my opinion. I don't know. I don't hate it, but I don't think it's good.
Okay.
Like, I think my favorite thing about it is definitely Martha. I really like how competent and sort of how strong-willed Martha is. It really started showing her strength as a companion. But overall, unless I was to watch it as part of a rewatch, it wouldn't be an episode I'd ever sit down to watch. If that makes sense. So I'd give it a soft miss.
Fair enough. I'm going to go ahead and say...
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I hate it with a passion. I think it's terrible. The one thing in it I like is Tish, is Gugu Mbatha-Rose, a great actress anyway, and she at least gets something to do. But the CGI is the Mummy Returns level bad. Gatiss' acting is the worst he's done. It's so camp and cheesy. The story has no real reason to exist and no point. When I watched the behind the scenes Doctor Who Confidential, they were like, "Oh, we were doing a Marvel Comics type of mad scientist becomes villain story," and I was like, "Yeah, in that case, you've done a really bad job. Believe me, as somebody who's consumed all of those Marvel stories, this is not good." Yeah, I don't want to sound just entirely, because it's going to be somebody's favorite episode. And my mum loves it for what it's worth. I don't know why, but she loves that episode. And I guess it does kind of stand on its own quite well, but also have hints of the overall season 3 arc. But for me, I think it's a spectacular miss on all counts, I'm afraid. So yeah, I think one soft hit, one soft miss, and one high miss, shall we say. Probably classifies the Lazarus experiment as a miss. With apologies, Ben.
It's fine. I understand where you're coming from, so...
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. Cool. That concludes the hit or miss section. So we're going to move on to our review, which this week, of course, is Mummy on the Orient Express, as we mentioned, Peter Capaldi's story. So do either of you guys, and we'll start with you, Ben, do you have a sort of log line or a brief sort of intro to your review, spoiler-free?
Not really. I've just got a few notes about the actual episode.
No problem.
My logline is always just a very short summary of my thoughts on the episode before I rewatch it.
Okay.
So people know where I am going into it. So my logline was a very creative and enjoyable episode that helps truly cement Capaldi as the Doctor after his very grumpy start. One of the best episodes of Series 8 and one I can happily rewatch whenever.
Okay, that's fair enough. So that was where you were before, or were you up when you thought you remembered being good? Well, okay. I have mine ready and I have my little stopwatch here, so I will just say start the clock. Up to this point in Series 8, I was struggling with Capaldi's characterization and likability. I disliked more episodes than I'd liked, as I recall, and we just had the incredibly bad taste of Kill the Moon. Entered Jamie Matheson with his second script, a replacement that actually aired just before the first thing he wrote, Flatline. A tense feeling hung over the characters in the show, and it was replicated in this viewer, settling down to watch at home. And that has taken me 26 seconds. So let me just say that I can see he's wrapped in bandages that they're falling apart. He seems to be able to go through people. He can teleport. Oh, no, Doctor, you can save me. You can save me. Do it. I don't want to die like this. Oh, no. That was actually only 40 seconds.
And that was the end of the episode, everyone. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I thought that was going to take longer. It was 40 seconds. I was hoping that for the sake of the skit, I could make it 66, but it didn't work, unfortunately. But yeah.
Well,
so that was my
but if it only took 40 seconds, then surely the mummy's still coming after you now.
No. Oh my god, that was loud.
Well, you might have to find another new co-host.
I'm dead.
Well, everyone, Mike's dead.
You were supposed to be taking the lead, Andrew, just come to think of it. So
I know I am, but you're dead. So, give me some
you.
time to mourn.
I should have handed it to you before now. So, yeah, take it away now that the mummy has killed me.
So, we open up the episode on the title Orient Express in space with an opening sequence that shows a lady called Mrs. Pitt being killed by the mummy. Any thoughts on this opening scene, guys? I have my note here. I can go into that when you guys have done yours if you want.
Okay.
All I really put about the opening scene was that I found it quite an intense and cold opening, and I also quite like that it introduced straight off the bat the 66 seconds concept.
Yeah, I said the same. Basically, I love the awesome surreal intro that it just starts with flashing images, and I think it's Capaldi saying "start the clock." I love that the clock literally appears on the screen, but just for the audience to build up the tension. I think that's a really cool idea, as is the idea that nobody else sees the mummy. It's very spooky and very effective. And the only other note that I had is because we're here already, the costume design and the sets throughout are fantastic. I love them. And that was all I had until we get the Capaldi title.
I have very similar note. My first note is just, this is an amazing opening sequence, high tension. I love the use of the clock. The costume and the setting is gorgeous. I'm an absolute sucker for this sort of like 1920s jazz bar themed sort of thing. I love all that kind of stuff.
But Andy, flapper or slapper?
I'm probably a slapper, let's be honest. Yeah, gorgeous costumes. I love the shots from the outside of the train that sort of go past the windows so you can see the different passengers as well as the mummy walking down. And I love the design of the mummy. My God, it is creepy. It is creepy as hell. The mummy's design is impeccable, but also it's really, really quite scary. And that is why this episode got moved back to a different time slot when it aired.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Is that the note you had?
More or less, I had the same note that it was so scary that the BBC moved to, I think it's the latest time a Doctor Who episode's ever aired for the first time.
Yeah, they were very worried about the mummy possibly being a bit too scary for however when did these episodes usually air? Like 6, 7-ish?
I think it was at the time when it was still around about 7:15.
Yeah.
But this one was like 7:30 or something, I think, when it started.
Yeah, they pushed it back really late because they were worried the mummy would be too scary.
Which is fine. I mean, that's the whole point. It is kind of scary and freaky. And related to that, I also read the note that Jamie Matheson and Stephen Moffat begged the BBC to put the mummy in the Series 8 trailer, and they wouldn't let them because they said it was too scary. So it says a lot about the design and how effective it is.
It's very effective. It looks terrifying, which I love personally.
Yeah, I'm a big horror movie fan, so I'm all for that. I'm here for it. So did you want to say anything about the Capaldi titles in case we haven't mentioned them yet?
I was going to ask if Ben had any more thoughts before we moved on.
Yeah. Sorry.
I don't really have any more thoughts about the actual opening scene before we move on to the titles, so...
Oh, I do like the performance. One thing I do want to know as well, I really like the performance, and I really like how it kind of comes back more later, but I think the character's name is Maisie, the sort of the blonde lady. I love how when who we find out later is her grandmother dies, you can kind of tell in her performance that she doesn't really care that her grandmother's dead. And like, at the time, you might be like, oh, you'd have thought she'd be more upset about that, but then obviously you find out later that no, and she has her reasons to not be. So I quite like that aspect of the performance, but yeah. Then we go into the title sequence. What are your thoughts on the Capaldi era title sequence?
I love it. I think they look incredible, but that's about all I can really say.
Fair enough.
I feel like Mike has a differing opinion.
No, I'm going to echo exactly what Ben says. I love it. I love the idea of the kind of the gears of a clock and the almost, what's the word I'm looking for? The almost Salvador Dali-esque without as much weirdness sort of intro. And yeah, the colors, the design. I love this particular Capaldi intro. I think it's great. And I like the actual variation of the theme tune as well.
Yeah, I love it. I love the whole thing. The only thing I don't like, and let me find the Twitter account that did it because I want to give them a shout out because it was thanks to them that I noticed this. I can't remember their handle, but I will find it. It's Jimmy something. I'm sure his name's Jimmy.
Wolf. Captain Jimmy Pie. Him.
I'm looking for it now. But basically, he pointed out that every Capaldi era episode, for some reason, the text is all over the place in the title sequence.
Oh, I never noticed that.
Yeah, the font and the text is an absolute mess on the title sequence in this era. I can't remember the account. I'll try and find it later and send it to Mike to possibly pin it in the description. But yeah, he went through every single episode of the Capaldi era for the title sequence and then post the picture of the you know, like when it says the episode name and then written by. It was always on that. And in Series 8 and kind of in Series 10, but mainly in Series 8, they are all over the place. The spacing's different all the time. Sometimes it's in all caps, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes the names are written on different levels. It's very confusing.
That's the sort of thing that would normally really bother me, and now it's probably going to do that.
But I will say my absolute favourite part of this title sequence is, I think it's when the tune goes into the do 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 do. I think it's that
part. Was a really good version. Wow,
thank you.
That was very accurate.
I am a singer. I thought you knew this. I love the part where I think it goes to a clock face and then the clock sort of breaks and spirals out. I love that. I've always loved that effect. I think it looks awesome. That's always like my most memorable part of the title sequence. I also do really like how they incorporate Capaldi's face into it.
Yes, because they hadn't done that yet. Had they done that with Matt?
No, they did it briefly with Matt Smith in 7B, I think. But yeah, the title sequence ends. And then we cut to the Doctor and Clara landing on the Orient Express train and sort of having a discussion as they walk into one of the carriages. Thoughts on I mentioned this later, but I might as well bring it up now. Thoughts on 12 and Clara as a what's the word? TARDIS team. There we go.
Okay.
I think the overall dynamic in this episode is actually quite interesting, but I also quite like it as well.
Okay. I have a lot of thoughts, so I'm not quite sure what to get into, first of all.
I have another note for around this scene, but it's not really about
Yeah.
12 and Clara, so I'll wait a minute.
I adore. I've said it before on the podcast, but I will die on this hill, and I'm happy to say it as many times as needed. I simply adore 12 and Clara together. I did not really care for Clara that much with 11, but with 12, I think she's perfect.
Totally agreed.
I adore their dynamic. I love how they bounce off each other. I love how unique their dynamic is, but I will get more into that later on. But yes, they walk into the... sorry, go on, Mike.
Yeah, well, I was just going to... Well, you've skipped over something I wanted to get your opinion on, but I'll come back to it.
Go on. Go on.
So first of all, I was just curious, as a sort of singer, what did you think about the foxes singing Queen?
I was just about to make a note on that.
No, I had on this scene.
I was about to say that. I'll let Ben go because I know he's a big Queen fan.
Yes.
As a big Queen fan, I actually love the Foxes' rendition of Don't Stop Me Now. I think it's fantastic. And I don't know if you've seen the actual music video, but I think overall it's brilliant. And I think that in the actual music video, I think it actually quite sums up Series 8 quite well.
That's one of the music videos. There is a couple just in case people start looking and then going, it's not like that.
I also love how the Foxes' Don't Stop Me Now returns in the background of Hell Bent as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for the diner
it
scene,
plays in the diner, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Did you have any thoughts, Mike, before I get into mine?
Yeah, I really like it. I like how, well, first of all, Queen are great, and their songwriting and everything's great. Foxes is fantastic. As a singer, I'm not that familiar with her, but she does a really good job here, and I like how they changed the tempo. I don't know music enough to say if that's the right word.
Tempo's the right word. They definitely slow it down.
Yeah, to make it this kind of jaunty, almost Charleston-esque 20s, like deet, 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 deet. Again, you probably know the right word for it better than me, but changing it from rock to sort of
jazz.
That's the word I was looking for. Changing from like rock to...
It's a genre, Mike.
The only thing that the word jazz makes me think of is that quote from B Movie.
I don't know, but I've never seen B Movie.
I haven't seen the B Movie.
It's literally, do you like jazz? But it was turned into a meme like a year or two ago or something.
It is kind of undeniable that Queen are legends, like just outright. I don't know if anyone could deny that. Don't Stop Me Now is actually my favourite Queen song. It was my favourite. It's either Don't Stop Me Now or Somebody to Love. Somebody to Love is my favourite to sing because it's a great one to do on karaoke, especially as a singer. Hitting that high E5 just gets everyone cheering, which is great fun. But to listen to, it's probably Don't Stop Me Now. But I adore this version. I love Fox's voice. I've listened to quite a few of her actual like pop stuff. It's great. She has a song called Let Go For Tonight, which I adore. And then she also did a song with Zed, I think is the DJ's name, called Clarity, which is great. I adore that, even though it's not usually my style of music. I love her voice. It's very fitting for the style. I'm gonna make this note now because I did have this note here, and I know Mike's gonna want to talk about it. Jenna looks stunning.
How did you know that I've got that note somewhere?
Because it's you, and I know exactly what you're like. But oh my god, Jenna looks stunning! Wow.
Yeah, I love her hair like this.
Yeah, it's really nice. My favourite style of Clara's hair was in Series 9, where it was sort of like a shoulder-length hair, and it's kind of like that here, although there's a bit more of a bob here, and I love it. It looks so good.
Absolutely. I did have some things, by the way, about the Doctor and Clara.
Yeah, go on.
That we never got into. Apologies if this kind of lowers the tone or anything. It shouldn't do, but if anybody's uncomfortable, I'm sorry. But I don't know if anybody knows this, but I was recently diagnosed with autism, which I've kind of been struggling with without knowing what it was for a while. And upon researching things since then, I've seen in Doctor Who fandom, a lot of people think that the Doctor might be a coded sort of representation of autism. And one of the sort of things with that is struggling to understand facial expressions and emotions and things. And I know some people have related to the scene of Jodie talking to Graham and not knowing how to sort of deal with his big opening up. But one thing I did note in this scene is what's very, very prominent is that when the Doctor says, please stop doing that, you're smiling, but you're sad, and it's really confusing. that's an incredibly autistic coded moment, because that sums up better than a lot of things I've seen exactly the kind of struggles and kind of the things that we apparently have issues with. So like, well, that's very forward thinking, and it's the one time when he's being a bit of a dick that I'm like, oh, okay, I see where you're going with that one.
Oh, so. I love that whole interaction. Again, it adds to my whole point of they have such a unique and like I could go on about how much I love their dynamic for hours, but I just love this whole relationship they build of like she's just so unapologetic to him, and he just kind of has to deal with that, and I quite like that. And I do find it quite. I don't mean this. I don't think this is rude to say. I don't mean for it to do if it does. I kind of like how flustered he gets with like this confusion. I think it's almost kind of adorable in a way.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. Yeah, that's not. Yeah, I think it's played better like with that than some of the time, because I have said, related back to your point about them as a team, I don't love them in this season because I think that the 12th Doctor's just such an insufferable dick a lot of the time, especially for the first kind of half of the season, and it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. But I do also get the sense that yes, it seems like the Doctor's trying, and that we get a good sort of dramatic beats from Jenna, who acts really well the whole sort of wrestling with the decision to leave. And I think that whole thing, the whole scene there is well written, acted, and directed. So
yeah, my note is just this exchange between them is beautiful.
Yeah.
And like I love the whole, I think it's here where they're sort of sat at the table and the Doctor's trying to go on about what I think it's here, it might be later on. If I'm wrong, I do apologise, but it's the part where they're sat at the table sort of looking out of the window at the stars, and the Doctor's saying like, oh, I remember when this used to be like full of planets, and he's trying to be all smart and doctory and show off and be like, oh, look at all the things I've seen, and she's just trying to take a moment of being like, I'm going to miss this.
Yeah, and but she goes into a lot more, which is like, oh, I don't hate you. I did for a while after this, and that's when you find out it's been like 3 weeks or something since Kill the Moon.
Yeah.
So yeah, interesting. I like that.
I love this. I love that whole exchange. But yeah, then we get into the Doctor meeting with, and I can't remember his name. I'm so sorry. The professor guy. I can never remember his name. I'm gonna fuck it up.
I don't know. I didn't pick up on it. I tried, but I don't know if it's ever mentioned.
There was only one character that wasn't the 12th Doctor or Clara that I picked up the name, and it wasn't him.
Was it Perkins by any chance?
Yes, it was Perkins. Obviously.
Yeah.
Professor Morehouse is his name.
But there you go.
I just looked it up. But yeah, so then we have the Doctor meeting Professor Morehouse, which is a nice way to sort of start setting the mystery up, especially with the particular line of the Doctor saying, I can't remember the exact line, but it's something like, how convenient it was that you were here to witness this. Like, witness Mrs. Pitt's death. And it sort of makes you question, it's very clearly planting a seed for later on, but I like how it does it in the way that it sort of makes you think like, yeah, that is a convenience that someone who's kind of an expert on this thing was there to see that. And I like that it kind of makes you think of that.
It feeds into the idea that they're playing with the Agatha Christie kind of Poirot type mystery genre as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I want to add something to what Andy said as well about how convenient it is, because I think it's either just before or just after. You get like, he's like the head of security, whatever, I can't remember. But he said, like the Doctor says, oh, I'm the Doctor. And he turns around and says, oh, yeah, we've got a lot of you lot around here, like doctors and professors.
Yeah, another one here.
Yeah, and then I just had another note that I just love the unique dynamic between 12 and Clara. I know you have problems with it. I personally just adore it, and I love. I think this is a scene where they're going back to their rooms, and they're discussing. They're sort of discussing the whole last hurrah idea, and Clara being like, "No, this is a good one to end it on." I like that exchange, and I love Murray Gold's score here. Not script. I wrote script for some reason, but yeah, I love his music here and the way that it sort of swells up to the end until we get to we sort of get to the Doctor starting to investigate things. I like how it swells up to that. What's the? I can't read my own writing. Oh, here we are. Yes, and then we have the phone conversation between Danny and Clara, which I guess it kind of depends on your opinion on Danny, how much you liked this scene, maybe. But I personally don't mind him.
Will hated this scene, and I don't understand why. I don't have any issue with it one way or the other.
No, I don't have a problem with it at all. I really like it. I like it, and I think it shows how... Because also the Doctor kind of sees Danny as this absolute arsehole because he used to be a soldier, and I'm like, well, he's not, because he's so nice to Clara in this scene. He's just like, look, I know you don't want to actually stop traveling with him, so why don't you just travel with him? And she's like, no, I'm done. I'm done with him. And then Danny's like, well, at least enjoy your final adventure then. I just really like that he's being so supportive of her.
I'll get into that at the end, but I have some things that I could say about that which are not... they don't reflect well on the character of Clara, shall we say.
Oh, no, we get there at the end. But again, if anything, it makes me like her character more because it adds more layer. But we'll get there at the end.
Sorry. Oh, sorry, just quickly to jump in case we go past it as well. I have a criticism, and I know some people perhaps think I don't criticize things enough, so I want to jump in and say...
Yeah, go on.
I hate the trope of characters talking to themselves because there's not another character there and you need to do it for the audience. And I'm sorry, Capaldi's a great actor, but when he's doing that talking to yourself scene, it doesn't work for me at all. Even his acting I thought was so bad. I'm really sorry. If you liked it, fair enough, but for me, I was like, this is...
Is that the bit where he's like lying down?
He starts lying down and he's like, what percentage are you that this is fine? Oh, 90%. No, well, not 90%.
I just want to add to that. It's not a criticism like yours, but without his actual, I don't know what you call it, like his jacket or whatever on, and he's just got like, I don't know what you call it, like the shirt and the waistcoat or whatever over it on. Without the actual jacket, I think he looks really nice in that outfit.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's one of those rare examples where I don't like a writing decision that Jimmy Matheson made. I get it, because you need to have those thoughts voiced maybe, but for me, it's a trope that I just didn't like. But,
it didn't bother me personally. I liked it. I'm just going to put this out there now. In general, I don't think Capaldi ever did any bad acting on Doctor Who. I think he's pretty much always spot on. I don't know. Maybe it's just a bias, but personally, I
agree. But that's probably simply because he's my favourite.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I do think there was some bad acting. If you know the fan base allows me to say that. But I also think it doesn't matter when you've got such great things as the speech from the Zygon inversion, or from what's it called again? The Doctor Falls, or his regeneration speech from Twice Upon a Time. They're all so good. So I'm not saying like he can't act. I'm just saying sometimes there's things that I'm like, ooh, but sometimes he's incredible. He's like my favorite Doctor at delivering those big speeches.
Maybe I'm just an absolute emo, but I am a sucker for when the Doctor gets dark. I love it.
Oh, I love dark.
Most of my favourite Jodie moments are when she's a bit darker and a bit more sinister. I love that. Anyway, then we get to the Doctor investigating Mrs. Pitt's chair, and then we meet the character of Perkins, played by Frank Skinner, who I personally loved.
Yep.
Oh, he was so good. If you don't like Perkins, you're wrong. There's no doubt about it. You're wrong.
You're completely wrong. I'm going to jump in and say, I don't know if you guys know this. You may well. And if I'm stepping on your toes, Andy, I'm really sorry. But the character of Perkins is an actual friend of Jimmy Matheson. He is a guy called Perkins who's a big train buff. And Jimmy wrote him into the episode for that guy, which I think
I didn't know that. That's really cool.
I like that.
It's the sweetest thing. I was like, oh, your friend is in the episode you wrote. That's so cool.
And you got Frank Skinner to play him. That's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and related to that as well, I don't know if you guys have heard the story, but Frank Skinner was interviewed by Doctor Who magazine because he's a huge Doctor Who fan. You can tell, by the way, he's so overjoyed to be there, and you can tell. And I think he's better than Capaldi. No offense to anybody in these early scenes, especially. But he said that when he got the call to ask if he'd come to do Doctor Who, he was watching his DVD of the Censorites on his tour bus. I was like, yep, you're a fan. You're definitely a fan.
I like that. But no, I love this scene. I love the immediate chemistry between Capaldi and Perkins. And I in particular, I really like the... I can't remember the exact wording. I should have made a note of the line. But it's the one where... Perkins is like, I know when I find a man sniffing around a chair a woman died in, that I should play my cards close to my chest. And like that being very secretive with each other. I really like that almost standoffish nature of it.
I've got the transcript up. Perkins says, well, I know when I find a man fiddling with a chair that someone died in, it's better to play my cards close to my chest. And the doctor replies with, "Really? Well, I know that when I find a man loitering near a chair that someone died in, I do just the same."
And then they just start talking like they're mates. I love it.
Yeah.
It's really fun. I really like it.
Because they introduce himself. Perkins goes, "Perkins, chief engineer." And the doctor turns around and says,
Dr. Nosy Parker. Yeah, love it.
Yep.
Yeah, they immediately have really good chemistry. It's a lot of fun. So then we move into Clara comforting Maisie as she sort of, wants to break into the room where her as we are going to find out grandmother's body supposedly is. I don't know why, but it always just makes me smile and laugh when she just uses a high heel shoe to break the door. I don't know why. It just puts a smile on my face.
Why not? It doesn't. I didn't think anything of it.
I think the thing is, maybe it's because the setting for this episode reminds me very much of Chicago, like the film and the musical, and it really does seem like something that a character in Chicago would do.
Yeah, I love that musical as well, by the way.
It's my favourite musical. I adore Chicago.
I'm going to be honest, I've only ever seen one musical, so I can't judge.
Which one? Because I'm going to judge you based on it.
Oh, wow.
Andy!
I'm not actually going to be that mean.
Blood Brothers.
Oh, good choice. Good choice. Blood Brothers is good. I have been in that. I did it for my A-level, but anyway, that is not important.
No.
But yeah, I really like... Jenna's always pretty damn great. I don't think I need to repeat myself on that. I've said it before. Jenna's pretty much always great. But I really like... I did look her up. Let me find it again. So
I never looked at the actress's name. While you're busy, though, I will say I have one very brief note, which is that I like how subtly we're introduced to Gus the computer. Like, he's the main villain, and it's just it's a throwaway line of treating him like the computer in Star Trek. It's like, computer, open the door.
I made the exact same note. I really like how he's introduced, and it's very sort of underplayed.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like there's no sort of overblown like, oh, I'm an evil computer. It's just he just acts. You don't even really think anything of him. It's just like, oh yeah, it's a computer. That makes sense. Who else is going to control all this stuff? And then sort of later when it gets more sinister, you're like, oh, okay. I really like that. Daisy Beaumont is the actress's name for Maisie, and I think she does a pretty good job. I really enjoy her performance. I think it's quite subtle as well. I really like how, especially in the scene, I think it's later, but I'll mention it now, the scene where she's telling Clara why she wanted to see her grandmother's body and explaining the fact that she actually didn't love her at all. She was actually quite happy she died. I like that her performance isn't over dramatic. It's no weeping. It's no, I'm a horrible person. It's just her going, kind of accepting the fact that maybe she is an awful person for wishing death upon this person. But then feeling guilty that it happened. So I really like how she plays it. I don't know why, it's just always stood out in my mind.
Yeah, that's one of the things that stood out to me that I mentioned to Will, and maybe it's just me being pretentious, but I think one of the key themes I picked up from the episode was the idea of trauma, and it's the idea that that Macy has kind of lived with the abuse and trauma from her mother/grandmother, and she's kind of processing that now that she's died. Then you've also got the captain who's dealing with literal PTSD.
And then you've also kind of basically got the mummy who's dealing with it as well, in a way.
Exactly, and the mummy's kind of a soldier that hasn't been allowed to even die. And then I think it's interesting to me how that parallels the fact that the Doctor and Clara are unknowingly traumatizing each other because of their addiction. So,
yes. Well, again, we're going to get into this stuff later, but since you mentioned it, oh, God, this is why I love 12 and Clara's dynamic so much. It's so unique, but we'll get into it later. I'm going to have a fanboy moment later at the end of the episode, if you will allow me. Anyway.
You're in charge, dude.
Very true. And then I adore... so then we move on. We've had the scene between Maisie and Clara where they sort of get introduced to her character a little bit more. And then I love 12's ability to just kind of waltz into a scenario and start looking for info. It reminds me of, because we watched it recently, it reminded me of McCoy in Remembrance. The way that he just walked into that van to start getting info on what they were monitoring. It kind of reminded me of that.
Completely. And I love that the Doctor already knows who the Foretold is, because it saves you so much exposition and time.
Yes, it's so handy. Yeah. I wanted to make a note of this, but I couldn't fully remember. Is this not what they teased at the end of the Big Bang?
Oh, you're getting onto a later note. I've got
mentioned it later. They specifically bring it up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He says
they do mention it later, don't they?
Yeah, he says Gus has tried to lure me here before.
Well, he says somebody has. He doesn't specifically
Oh,
call
And
it.
again, that also adds another layer to why I love 12 and Clara. The fact that he, not only did he bring her here just thinking something was wrong, he brought her here knowing exactly what he was getting into. Like, that's so manipulative. But again, we will get to it.
I love how cheeky it is that the Doctor, to fit the times, pulls out a cigarette case and then opens it and it's got jelly babies inside.
Yeah, and then it has the jelly babies. Yeah, I really like that.
Wonderfully Doctor Who.
Can I
I love
just
that
say,
so much.
I don't know what was up with me last night, but my next note is literally, I haven't made many notes. I'm not too good at this.
Oh,
You're doing
yeah, I love the fact that the Doctor just waltzes in and starts getting information. Very much in the similar vein of Seven in Remembrance of the Daleks, and then I love how the professor, what was his name again? I'm already forgetting. Professor Morehouse. There we go. I love how the conversation with Professor Morehouse and the Doctor discussing the Foretold and how it works is cut in with the second death.
Yes,
So
I have the same note.
It's such a clever editing choice because it saves on so much exposition dump later. The fact that they're just having a conversation about it and what they know of it, and to help the audience understand it, they just show us what is happening exactly as it's being explained.
I should have looked up the director as well, because I love the directorial choice that we're just in the middle of the exposition scene, and then as if to reinforce the horror of it, we're just thrown straight to the next victim. No sort of gentle ease in, no like, oh, something's happening. It's just like we're talking 1 minute and then the next, bang, the mummy's coming for him and we can see the clock.
Paul Wilmshurst is the director.
Credit to Paul Wilmshurst, and there's some excellent horror movie type decisions in here.
And it's, again, even though we've already seen the mummy once, this scene is still really creepy. It's the way it just lurches forward, and you can see the terror in this chef's eyes as it sort of lurches towards him. And then he, like, shuts himself in the room. And, again, we don't know it can teleport at this point. So you're like, oh, okay. So is he okay? And then they say, I think it's Professor Morehouse says, like, oh, it follows you wherever you go, or whatever the line is. And then suddenly it's behind him in the room. It's so well shot. It's so
like
well
you said,
executed.
it's explaining what it's doing as it's doing it, but not in a way that's cheesy or bad. Because it's kind of like, it literally, you know, he gets away and you're like, oh, is he fine? And then the guy says, no, you can't avoid it. If you go anywhere, it'll teleport. It can get through things. And I was like, this is brilliant.
It's
you're telling us,
so good. A couple of other notes I have for this scene in particular. I put having the countdown on screen is a phenomenal choice by the editor. And it's a great way of building the tension for the audience, because you see the clock ticking and you know once that hits 0, someone's going to die. And it helps to build up that tension, because you keep watching going, okay, oh, he's going to die, he's going to die. They're not going to stop him. Oh, God, he's going to die. It's so... I just love it as an editing choice. It's so good. Again, I've put the Foretold looks absolutely horrifying, possibly more so in this scene because the lighting's different. It's sort of like an almost eerie blue-white because we're in a kitchen, and I think it looks even creepier there. And that's when I made the note of I can see why they had to push back the time slot. And then I also made a note of, I just want to give a shout out to this every time it happens. The staging for these scenes where the Foretold attacks must have been so intricately done to be able to make it last exactly 66 seconds.
I never even thought of that, but yeah, I guess you're right, because it would have to...
Yeah,
it would have to last exactly 66 seconds for it to make sense within. And I guess maybe they could have altered little bits here and there with editing, but it still would have to been so tightly done so that it still fit the time constraint. And I just think that's really commendable.
Related to that, presumably there's somebody playing the Foretold. That actor has to move at a very deliberate pace, because if he goes too fast or too slow, then that's going to screw up your countdown. So yeah,
also,
credit to that.
Complete credit to the actor Jamie Hill, who did play the Foretold. He was the man in the costume. His physicality and the way he performs it is so good.
Yeah,
like even the little details to the way he just sort of lurches forward with one foot, sort of awkwardly dragging behind him. It's so, again, great performance. It's really well done.
Very good.
Then we get into the Doctor meeting. What's his name? I did make a note later on, but I'll have it here anyway. Captain Quell. This is where we meet Captain Quell properly. And I love. I know. Again, you've kind of said you're not too keen on Capaldi in Series 8. I personally love him. I love the mystery shopper gag. I think that's so funny. It made me laugh a lot.
I like that because it's also the thing where the psychic paper was so sort of convenient at first, and I love the fact that the doctor doesn't really know what it's going to say.
Yeah, it's so funny.
He's annoyed.
Yeah, exactly. It's like he just says, "I'm your worst nightmare," and shows him the thing, and then he says, "Oh, great, a mystery shopper," and he's like, "Wait, what?" It's really funny.
Like double takes at it and goes, "Well, I guess we're going with that then."
Yeah, and then he's like, and then he gives like a whole like TripAdvisor review about why he's annoyed. It's really good. I love how Capaldi plays that scene. It's very, very funny.
Yeah.
Come on, Capaldi do some TripAdvisor reviews in real life.
Oh my god, I could watch that for hours.
Related to this, by the way, sort of around this idea, I like some people might not because it's a cliche, but it's a deliberate horror movie cliche that the people in authority are just hiding the monster and sort of not at first. They're kind of like, no, don't tell anybody. It's and yeah, the doctor confronting the guy about that is very
there's a line later on. You probably know which line I'm going to mention, but I'll get to it when we get to the scene. But there's a line later on that I love about that in particular that works really well. But yeah, so here we start establishing the captain's character, and I think it's the scene in his office where he's sort of talking about why he was honorably discharged from the military. It's a nice way of setting up his character, and then also kind of setting up his death later on. Again, it's nicely done because then it doesn't feel like it just comes out of nowhere. I like how for a lot of these, there's because obviously the whole plot kind of comes down to the fact that the Fortol is picking off the weakened passengers first. Mm-hmm. And I like how it subtly sort of plants those in and makes you sort of realize them, if that makes sense. Like, because obviously Mrs. Pitt was just super old. Fair. Yeah, we don't really know much about the chef, but like, I don't think that needs to be as relevant. We physically see Professor Morehouse having a panic attack as the Foretold attacks him, and that kind of gives you a clue of, oh. And then obviously they confirm it later on of like, yeah, he's picking off people who have ailments or something like that.
Yeah, they do mention. I think they do explain it, but it's very sort of it's fast and subtle because they say that it's not necessarily just mental. So I think they kill Mrs. Pitt because she had like an artificial heart, and I think they mentioned something
no, that was someone else. That was someone else. Sorry. So it was Mrs. Pitt was because she was super old. Then there was, I don't think I actually made a note of this scene because I was just kind of engrossed in it at this point. But there's the I think it's a guard who gets attacked, and they say he had artificial lungs or something. He had like an artificial body part. Then it was the chef who had a blood disease that wasn't contagious, but they kept it on the down low because they didn't want people think. Basically, it was kind of like a subtle AIDS reference almost.
Yeah.
Then there was the professor who had panic attacks and sort of an anxiety disorder, and then there was the captain who had PTSD. But that one's like very blatantly spelled out for you. But yeah, I really like the way that this is done. I really like how his character's set up. And then we start having the Doctor having more banter with Perkins, which is great.
No.
Sorry, go on.
I want to make a very quick note back to the scene. First of all, I like that it subverts that the Doctor's interrogating the captain and you don't like him and then he becomes sympathetic.
Yes.
But I noticed something, and this is, again, the pompous film student in me. I noticed that there's a very deliberate, massive clock behind Capaldi that the camera almost wants to focus on when he's doing that scene. And the tick of the clock is deliberate. It's got to have been, because it's so loud, deliberately heightened in the mix. So I think that's sort of to make you, it reminds you of the foretold countdown idea when you're already kind of in the middle of a tense scene. At least that was what I thought.
I didn't notice that. I like that because obviously the foretold isn't here at the moment. I like that idea of keeping it in the background as a just remember someone's going to die. I quite like that. That's quite cool.
By the way, I've got the transcript up, and I'd just like to point out how spot on Andy was about the things wrong with them, because the transcript right here literally says a rare blood disorder, and then for the other guy, it literally says synthetic lungs.
He's good.
Your boy knows what he's talking about.
Indeed.
Thank you.
The Perkins scene, you were there.
Yes. Again, then we have Perkins interacting more with Capaldi, which is great. We've established this. Perkins is a great character. Would he have made a good companion? I think he probably would have done.
Yeah, I think he would have done.
I'm kind of glad he didn't.
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad he didn't, because I do love it when we have these episodes that have like really good would-be companions. I think another good example, I know you've reviewed it already, but I wasn't there for that one, so I can share my thoughts. If she hadn't have died, I think Rita from the God Complex would have been a great companion.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'd even go as far as to say I think Nikola Tesla would have made a great companion after his episode in Series 12. It would have worked really well, partially because of obviously Tesla's background with technology and electronics. I think he would have been absolutely... I mean, he was in the episode, but I feel like giving him a chance to learn more about the TARDIS would have been so fascinating to watch. Plus, and I'm so sorry, I never remember the name of the guy who played him in the episode, but he was really good. So it'd been really fun to see more of his performances as Tesla.
It was Goran Visnich who started his career on ER, replacing George Clooney, and who also stars in a TV show that you all should watch called Timeless, where he plays the villain.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that.
An idea that I've always wanted as well is like a historical figure as a companion, but like the Doctor knows that they're going to have to take him back eventually because they carry on the normal life, but then something happens to them, they'd leave or something in a way.
You're thinking something similar to what they did with Charlie Pollard, maybe in the audios.
I got to the end of her story, so I wouldn't know.
Quickly though, I have to say, because I have to shout out this great line. I love Frank Skinner's delivery and line when the expert is talking about how hopeless it is and everything, and just Frank Skinner's delivery of, "Can we get a new expert?"
Yeah, that's great. It's really funny.
Love it. Carry on, sorry.
I just made a note of I love the mystery of this episode. I think it's really intriguing. I like how it builds up, and I think it's very, very well performed and just executed throughout the episode. Then we go into Maisie and Clara again, as this time it's Maisie's turn to pick Clara's brain, and I love how it's done. Yep. I love how... Because it's kind of a thing in real life where, like, if two friends have an argument, it's like getting an outside opinion can sometimes be good because you've got someone who isn't really invested either way. You can just sort of look at the facts and go, oh, well, you see, you did this, but he also did this, blah, blah, blah. And I like that they kind of do this here with Maisie sort of saying to Clara, like, I know where you're coming from, but you clearly do care about him because otherwise you wouldn't, like... I
made the same note. My exact note is I love that Maisie calls out Clara's bullshit. Because it's about time somebody did. I absolutely love that.
Just the fact that she just outright says, well, you clearly do still care about him because you're here and you're talking about it. And if you didn't care, you would have stopped talking about it.
Yeah, 100%.
And I love this line. I don't know why I've never noticed this line that much before, but this line really stuck out to me this time. And it was the line that Maisie says of life would be so much simpler if we liked the right people. Mm-hmm. I love that line. It's really good. And kind of accurate, like really scarily accurate.
Yeah, the fact that's reinforced by the Doctor calling Clara, and he literally won't even let her reveal that she's trapped because he's so self-involved. I think reinforces that quite nicely as well.
Mm. Then we have the third victim of the mummy, and I like the fact that it's sort of, even though you knew it wasn't going to happen, I do like the whole fake out of the sarcophagus opening and you sort of being like, oh shit, is it going for Clara? Is it going for Maisie? And then no, we see it in a different part of the train. I think that was quite nicely done, especially with the way it was shot, because it takes a while. It takes a moment to build up the tension with the sarcophagus opening, and like Clara's on the phone to the Doctor, and then it opens and it's not there, and you're like, huh? And then it just suddenly cuts to its face attacking this other man, and it's quite. It's not a jump scare, but it's kind of a jump scare. It's kind of framed like one. Which is really nicely done.
I said the same thing. The whole thing puts you on edge because the director uses a fisheye lens to show Capaldi through the door, so you're already kind of queasy, even without seeing anything happening. And then it's great that they cut to the victim when there's only 20 seconds on the clock.
Yeah.
That's the first time you see it. It's a nice little mislead. So, yeah.
This is the line that I love with the captain, which is where the Doctor knows that someone's being attacked, and he says to Captain... Again, I'm so bad with names today. He says to Captain Quell, how many people have to die before you stop looking the other way? And then as soon as this man dies, he just responds, it turns out it's 3. Like, I really liked that. That was a really good line.
Yeah.
And I really like the delivery as well.
Yep.
I love the reveal of the truth about everything, that this isn't really just a holiday. It's like it's all an illusion. It's all just a lab, and Gus has gathered all these experts to study this thing. And the way that we find out, I think this is a bit later on, but the way that we find out through Clara reading old reports that this is not even the first time it's done it.
Yeah.
It's quite Gus is very sinister. like really sinister. And I have to completely commend John Sessions, the voice actor. He kills it. He really does nail the sort of what's the exact way I put it? The sinister, jovial tone is how I put it. It's like he sounds so upbeat and sort of pleasant, but then everything he's saying is really dark and sinister, and I really like the contrast.
This is perhaps a silly question, but have you guys both seen The Green Death?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I was heavily reminded of Boss, the computer from The Green
Death. Yes. Now you say it, I can totally get that. But yeah, I like how the reveal works. I like the sort of shot of the train losing its sort of 1920s visage, and you find out it's a lab.
Hologram fading.
I like the holographic people, and the idea of they were just there to fill the numbers, to make people believe that it was an actual just a trip. And then I love the line, "That was my best guard," as he sees him disappear. And yeah, I love this scene because this is where 12's Doctor really started to make sense to me. This is the episode that really made him become the Doctor for me fully. But I love this scene. I love Capaldi's performance, sort of as he's sort of standing off against Gus, if that makes sense.
Well, he's being Poirot. That's deliberately, as you're saying, he's got everybody into the equivalent of the draw room, and he's like, something's going on here, and I'm investigating. And I was like, yep, you're doing exactly this sort of, I'm the investigator, I'm going to get to the bottom of this mystery. To the point that Gus's symbol is an actual monocle.
Yeah.
Quite nicely as well.
Then
he starts analysing, basically, yeah.
Yeah, then we got the Professor sort of doing... I like the subversion here between the Professor and Professor Morehouse and the Captain, where... Pardon me. The Professor sort of starts analysing it and then sort of breaks down into a panic attack and can't really do anything. He's just he's so terrified for his life, and then it kills him. But then later on, when the Captain's the target, he kind of does the opposite, where he starts by sort of, doing the soldier thing of, getting his gun and shooting it. But then he's actually being really informative and actually making the most of the time he has to try and help. I really like the fact that they sort of switch the expectations there. I've always liked that, even when I first watched it. But anyway, that Captain dies a little bit later. I love how... Yeah, he dies a little... We've got a little bit in between the Captain and the Professor dying.
Oh, right, okay, yeah, got you.
I really like the idea of Gus blowing up some of the other carriages that are filled with... What's the exact wording he used? The less valuable or something.
Yeah, brilliantly horrific. Yeah,
it's absolutely horrific. And again, the fact that he has this almost jolly tone as he's just slaughtering these people is both really funny and very dark.
That's just as you find out about Clara saying, it's happened before, and other trains and crews have been sacrificed and stuff as well. So you're like, oh crap, there are stakes now.
Yeah, it really does build up the tension quickly of there are actual stakes here. This could be really bad.
I will say though, on the critical side of things, that I hate the Doctor when the Professor's dying. I really detest this idea of I can't save you, but anything you tell us might save the next person, so stop being selfish. And I was like, I really, really, really don't like that.
I don't mind it at all, but mainly I think that's just because it really adds to 12's character arc over the 3 seasons. How he starts really grumpy, and he is kind of an absolute, for lack of a better word, an absolute arsehole in the first series, and then he sort of mellows in series 9, and then by series 10 he's almost a completely different person, at least in his empathy and the way he interacts with people. I personally really like it, but I get that that's a personal choice. It just works for me personally. But I do get what you mean. He has been an absolute dick.
Something I like to think about as well is, I was going to bring this up not long ago, but I didn't think it was relevant, so I'm just going to throw it in now. Something I like to think about is, although it probably wouldn't have changed too much, what would have happened if 11, Amy and Rory would have originally gone to Gus's call?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, sort of wonder how 11 would have handled it.
Yeah. And
that would have been quite interesting.
There would have been 2 different companions as well, rather than just the one with Clara.
Yeah. Then we have the Captain's death, which I think is quite effective. I think the actor, let me double check what his name is, I think David Bamber puts in a good... I think everyone puts in great performances in this episode. But I love how some shots are done in this sequence. In particular, the part where the mummy's sort of coming towards the captain, and I can't remember the exact wording, but 12 stands in the middle, and he says, like, where is it? And the hand just passes through his face, through his eyes. It's really creepy, but it works so well. Oh, I love this episode. It's so good. Yeah, that was a very good directing decision. And again, the mummy looks terrifying. I really like the performance that the captain has as he's dying. I like that he actually does use his time to explain everything that's happening to try and help them, give them the information they need to possibly save the next person. And then I love how, as 12 jumps straight back into, okay, well, get to work, Perkins says, can we not have a moment to mourn? I love this whole scene of Perkins just dressing the Doctor down. I think it's something that, as much as I have said that I love Capaldi, and I really do, I love 12, and I love him pretty much in all of his episodes, I do love the fact that we do get someone here going, no, you're being an asshole, stop.
Yeah, completely. And I think that any other Doctor might have played that similarly, but not as arrogant, which is like, no, we will mourn, but right now we can't, but we'll get there. Whereas Capaldi's like, no, we can't mourn. We don't have to. And it's like, stop being a prick. But
I don't think he's wrong. I completely get where he's coming from.
No. It's not that's the point. It's not what he's saying that's wrong. It's the way he's saying it. And I think that's the case with a lot of early Capaldi.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I also have the note here that this episode really doesn't let up its pacing that much at all. Like, we have quieter scenes, mainly the ones between Clara and Maisie when they're on their own in the room with the sarcophagus. But, like, even then, it's still cut around, like, action scenes. It's either, like, a death with the mummy or, like, Capaldi investigating. Like, the pacing really never lets itself down in this episode. Like, a lot of it is very high pacing because it has a lot to pack into a 45-minute episode. And then it has a couple of moments where you can just breathe and sort of, relax a little bit more before it builds the tension back up. So I just, in general, really like the pacing of this episode. And then we get into 12. At least I personally love this because it's very fitting for his character, and it will come back later when we talk about Clara at the end. I love 12 manipulating Clara because it's another example of their really unique dynamic. The fact that I've mentioned this before on the podcast. One of my things that I love about them as a duo is the fact that they really do kind of bring out the worst in each other. And this is like a prime example because 12 actively gets Clara to lie to get Maisie to come to the carriage so that he can, quote, in quotation marks, save her. Yeah. Even though Clara knows that is not what he's going to do. I
really, really hate that characterization. It's saved later, which I can forgive it, but I hate that. And I do love that at that same moment that the writer and director take the time to show that Clara does think about just jumping in the TARDIS, but there's a force field there.
Yeah. Again, it's their characters. I love how many layers there are, but again, we'll get to it at the end. I love the fact that she kind of does call him out on that, and then especially later on, which we'll get to. I can't remember exactly where it is. Actually, I'll say it now because I can't remember exactly where it is. But the part where he does bring Maisie and she realizes that, he is just planning on letting her die so they can study it more. And she just actually loses it with him and just goes, no, you lied to me again. And you got me to do it with you. Like, you made me your accomplice. Like, I love the performance there. And again, she's rightfully angry.
If I could move away from Doctor and Clara, though, briefly to say that I love that Perkins is a genius, despite being like a potentially lower class engine room type guy. So it's him that points out, first of all, that the mummy is leeching energy, so it's also a vampire, which brings up horror movies quite well.
Yes,
but it's also him that works out why it's 66 seconds because it's changing a state.
Changing a state of phase. Yeah, I really like that. Yeah. I like the whole explanation for what the mummy is doing and how it works, and it does make sense, and it adds all of the pieces together really nicely, including the whole why only the victim can see it. Like, it makes it all make sense, and I love it. It's a very, at least, I think I put it in my conclusion, but I think this mystery, and in particular how it all comes together is very satisfying.
Completely, yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
Then we get into the Doctor taking Maisie's trauma and making it his, which is, I like the idea. It kind of seemed to come out of nowhere, but it doesn't really bother me. I like how it works. It makes sense because, you know, he's tricking the mummy into thinking it's him.
I do think, yeah, it comes out of nowhere, but it's also a clever decision that it kind of points it out to us because it doesn't start a clock when Maisie first sees them.
Yes.
And I was like, hang on a minute, why? And it starts the clock when Capaldi takes the trauma into himself,
yes.
but doesn't at first. So you're kind of like, hang on a minute, which is cool.
Yeah, agreed. And I love his performance in this final climax. Literally, and I know that you've probably got more. Literally, my only criticism of this episode, but it's not even really a criticism because it kind of makes sense for what the episode had to do. I hate how rushed this is.
Yeah, I can see what you mean, but it's a ticking clock narrative, so by nature,
exactly. And that's why it doesn't bug me too much, because even though it bugs me personally that, okay, we've had like 40 odd minutes of building up to this thing, and now we're just going to end it within 60 seconds. But it makes sense for the narrative, so it doesn't bother me.
I would also say that if it was just the end of everything, I would agree with you. But the fact that the mummy is neutralized and the threat's still there because Gus is still, threatening them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you're not really. It's not a matter of and I surrender and that's the end of the episode. Which, by the way, I have put in big capital letters. The solution and explanation for defeating the mummy is brilliant. I absolutely love it.
Yes, I love it. Yeah. I think it's great. So fun fact. I don't know if any of you. I don't know if either of you have picked up on this, but it seemed to be a theme with Series 8, and I think I worked out why. There is a lot of theme on war and soldiers in Series 8, and I believe that's because it aired on the first year of the centenary of World War One.
You've mentioned that before, yeah. I think.
Have I mentioned that before?
Yeah, but I think when you mentioned it, I was like, you know what? Looking back, absolutely, because I mean, Danny's throughout the season, and he's a soldier.
Yeah, because I found it very confusing when it all first aired, but then I figured that, and I was like, oh, okay.
Also,
Series 8 really does feel like almost like an homage to soldiers and everything they do, kind of.
Yeah.
Into the Dalek as well, you have Journey Blue, who asks him if she can come with him, and he declines her offer because she's a soldier.
There's a lot of stuff with soldiers in Series 8, and I do believe it is big. I mean, even the finale itself was all very soldier themed. Yeah. And I believe that is all because it was kind of Doctor Who's way of celebrating the centenary. And I love Capaldi's performance in that. I think it's really good.
Oh, it's very good. Yeah, I also want to bring up a couple of great bits of sort of humorous dialogue again. The first one, which we'll get massacred if we don't mention it. Yes, he does say, "Are you my mummy?"
Yeah,
of course. But I also love that when the solution is there and the Doctor surrenders, the Doctor and Perkins' dialogue is, "You're relieved, soldier. He's not the only one."
Yeah,
it's such a cheesy joke, but it gets me every time. I don't know why.
Part of me feels like if Perkins would have joined the TARDIS team, he would have been more of like the comic relief like Nardole. But I also think he might have done it a bit like better than Nardole, because I think he would have been able to portray a bit more the serious side more than Nardole.
Yeah.
I love this whole thing. I know it's kind of, again, the 12 being a bit of an arsehole, but I do find it funny how casually he's trying to fix everything while everyone else like suffocates.
Oh no, that's very Doctorish. I'm fine with that.
It does make me laugh.
He's tinkering the whole time, and but I could live without him revealing that it was because he was trying to find out who the guy was, rather than focusing on just saving people. Because that's a little bit like.
And then we come to the beach and the start of 12's theme, which I love.
Oh, that final scene on that beach is beautiful.
Yeah, I put exactly that. The scenery for this final scene is gorgeous. Yeah, and again, like I said, it has the start of 12's or the 12th Doctor's theme, which is gorgeous. And then I really like the line when Clara said, "So you saved everyone," and you just put, "No, I saved you and let everyone else suffocate."
I hate that. I absolutely hate that. It's a shit joke.
I like it. I think it's funny.
No, it's a shit joke, and I hate the fact that for a while I was like, you know what, this characterization, he might have, and I hate that. I'd rather not deal with this.
Can I also? I want to also add. There's a line here. I tried hacking Gus from the TARDIS, find out who set this all up. And what I like about that is stories like this where it leaves something open to a future story. But
I have a big issue with that because it's never been resolved.
But I also quite like it because
I would have liked if we'd have gone back and found out who he was.
Because it's like just the idea of the Minister of War, which is in the Ghost 2 Part and X series as well. That's just an idea that's thrown in a random conversation and never revisited.
I'm not a fan of that. It seems as if they're setting something up that they just never get around to, but maybe it's just me.
I don't mind at all. But no, I personally like that line. I think it's funny. And I do love this dialogue of the Doctor explaining why he was acting how he was. And whilst it doesn't excuse a lot of his actions, I do love the dialogue itself. I love the whole
it's incredibly Seventh Doctor as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
As pretending to be heartless to kind of, would it make it easier and all that? So
yeah, because she says, were you pretending to be heartless? And he says, would it make it easier for you if I said that's what it was, or whatever the line is? Sometimes
the only choices you have are bad ones, but you still have to choose. I think that sums up a lot, and that as I said, corrects a lot of my issues with the early characterization of the 12th Doctor, because I'm like, if this was the Doctor straight after the Time War and there was a reason for him to be kind of traumatized and a bit dickish, I'd forgive a lot more of it, because I just think it doesn't make sense after he's just been given like a whole new set of lives and everything. But that's neither here nor there. It's just, I think, I can see what they're going for, at least here.
I really like it. And then we cut to them going inside the TARDIS, and they have sort of a final scene with Perkins, who is great and should have stayed. I'm kind of glad he didn't, but I would also have been very happy if he'd have stayed, at least until the end of the series.
Is it only me that can see, by the way, in Frank Skinner's acting, that he's really struggling because he has to refuse and you can tell the actor doesn't want to.
I know, right? Like, I think he would have adored to be able to stay on.
Yeah, can you just imagine them turning around and saying to him, oh yeah, you're going to be in Doc 2, and we might even let you be a companion, but you've got to refuse the offer.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we get, again, this is just, Ben, if you have not really listened to much of my episodes as a co-host, just so you know, I always like to pick out the music because that's what I do. So like, I'm always a bit of a sucker when I hear music that I know I love. I love this rendition of Clara's theme, and I love how it flows into 12s. It's very nicely done.
I like the music throughout the episode. I think it's brilliant. I completely agree with you on that. Yeah,
very, very good. And then my last note is, because then we get to the scene of Clara lying, which, again, she's kind of a bitch, but let me explain why I love it. I love the character dynamic contrast between the fact that 12 actually tells her the truth and then she lies to him. It's like, it's so fitting for their characters. And I love it. Oh, I can't describe how much I love it. As awful as she is in that scene, I can't describe how much I love it from I can't even think of how to word it. Just how unique and different it makes them as a Doctor and companion duo. I love it.
Yeah.
But I imagine you have some things to say.
I'm trying to find. I've been scrolling because I had a conversation with Will about it, and I was kind of finding because I think it summed up a lot. I'll just repeat the conversation I had with Will, if you don't mind, because it's an interesting one. So bear with me. I'll probably be quick. So Will said the whole Clara wanting to leave the Doctor for Danny doesn't make sense to me, and they spend the whole episode dealing with a non-starter since they ended the caretaker on good terms, the Doctor and Danny, and then whoosh featured trio again by the next episode. Why? To which I replied, honestly, because of Clara. The Doctor was wrong at the end of Kill the Moon. Clara is wrong here. She's being a manipulative bitch and playing two men off against each other. Believe me, I've seen it. Heck, I've had it happen to me. Oh, it was Danny's idea for me to stop is the biggest bitch move she ever pulls. To which Will says, maybe that resonated more with you than me because it's a nickel. It's a niggle, sorry. The highest point of the episode is the threat. Couldn't care less about Danny and Clara. The trauma stuff was good. And then I said, I read Clara's behavior through that lens at the end, but also the metaphor they make explicit for addiction. She deliberately lies because she only cares about her next fix. Having said that, it's also the Doctor who chooses to be ignorant of the obvious. She literally told him she hated him for weeks, a few hours before, and he just doesn't care. So, yeah.
Is it bad that I love it? I can't explain how much I adore how interesting and different it is to have these two, to have a Doctor and companion who are, for all intents and purposes, especially by the end of Series 9, absolutely horrendous for each other.
It's an interesting dynamic, and I can see why you would like it. It's
so interesting.
Yeah.
I love it. I will forever die on the hill that I think they have one of the best dynamics because it's so different and kind of, for lack of other words, kind of fucked up. Like, this is definitely the start of Clara's arc where her addiction to the traveling really starts to take hold.
Yeah.
Because, like, we have the end of Kill the Moon where she, like, he quite, I think quite rightfully is furious with him for what he did. And, whilst that episode isn't exactly the best, I actually rewatched it, like, the other week out of curiosity. Not as bad as I remembered. It was fine. But the ending is definitely the best part, where she just completely rips into him. It's like, we have that, and then her, be adamant that she's going to leave, and then we kind of realise that she is as addicted to this as 12 is. And then we just kind of have these two characters who I'm pretty sure are well aware of each other's problems and are very well aware that they shouldn't keep traveling, but they do because they're hooked and they want to keep going because it's what makes them feel good. And it's kind of fucked up, and I love it. It gives you
a lot more depth and more to analyze, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Even if I don't agree with the way the characters act, but I will say that I actually love the character of Clara, despite what I had just said, because I do. Yeah. There's something nice about seeing that people can be flawed and you can still like them at the end of the day.
I've said this before on like posts and in forums and stuff, but the reason I love Clara so much is because she is one of I wouldn't say one of the only, but one of the very few times, at least in my experience, where we have a companion who we genuinely see can be an absolutely awful person. Yeah. And, like, they don't hide that. They show the fact that she is a very, very flawed person quite openly.
Yeah, and she makes mistakes, but I would say she's never... It never goes down the lane of, therefore she's evil. It shows that she makes mistakes, but she's ultimately still a good person.
Yes, exactly. It just makes for such interesting TV, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can see that.
Anyway, Ben, do you want to give us your conclusion?
I haven't really got a conclusion, but I've got a score out of 10.
Go on.
Okay.
I personally give it a 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fair enough. Okay. Mike, do you want to go next?
Yeah, can do. I've said a perfectly paced bit of solid Doctor Who, utilising detective stories and horror to create a terrifying, intriguing mystery that's exceptionally well written, with an absolutely ingenious solution and explanation. I don't love that we're still yet to find out who Gus was working for and why. It did seem like that was a big setup, and now it's a frustratingly abandoned, dangling plot thread. I also really dislike the characterization of the Doctor for most of the story, but I recognise and love that it's starting to acknowledge, explain, redeem, and move away from that at the end. I can't be too critical, though, because along with the writing, I think the direction was superb. The acting was 90% perfect. Even the likes of sets, costumes, and music just shined for me. Jenna Coleman was mesmerizing, compelling, and breathtaking in more ways than one. The action was great, and the overall story popped. I was thoroughly entertained, engrossed, thrilled, scared, and honestly, I would happily take this incredibly enjoyable train ride again. And I said 8.5 out of 10.
Okay. So for me, I put... This is my conclusion. What a phenomenal episode. The pacing is perfect. The mystery is interesting, satisfying, extremely well crafted and executed. The title, because the mummy, yeah. The title mummy looks absolutely terrifying, sinister, and works extremely well. Gus is a sinister villain, and it just helps, it really helps to flesh out the characters of both 12 and Clara, and add new depth and layers to their extremely unique and captivating dynamic. Pretty much my only criticism is its very rushed resolution, but I love the resolution, and it makes sense why it was rushed given the timer. And even though I do have this niggle, it made perfect sense and did not ruin the otherwise well-crafted and executed plot. 9.5 out of 10, almost perfect.
Wow, cool. So
I adore this episode.
So we had 8.5, 9, and 9.5, so the average isn't going to be hard to work out, is it?
Yeah, it is a 9. It is a 9.
9 out of 10. Perfect. Square on. If anybody's
So good.
if anybody's curious, as we always do this, by the way, Will gave this episode a 7.5.
I think the only episode of Series 8 that is better than Mummy is Flatline.
Agreed.
Yes. Agreed.
We aren't reviewing it for this series, so I don't mind saying this because I don't think I've really gotten to say my thoughts on Flatline that much. And I don't know if we're going to be reviewing it in the next series or whatever, so I don't know. But I will say this now, just based on memory, Flatline is a 10. It is absolutely perfect.
I'd like to say I'd also give it a 10. And even though he's not like featured loads in the story, it's my favourite actual 12th Doctor story.
It's
Awesome.
so good and so Flatline is amazing.
What's Will's actually listening in, and he's just literally posted me a fantastic looking new leaderboard. He says to tell Andrew he's spot on about Flatline, and he's also confirmed that this places Mummy on the Orient Express 4th out of the 8 stories we've currently reviewed on the leaderboard.
So it's behind Remembrance, Children of Earth, and Ark in Space.
Yes, but only just, and there's almost, it shows the quality of the ones we've been reviewing, that between 4th place Mummy on the Orient Express and 1st place Remembrance of the Daleks, there's 0.5.
Yeah, I know, right?
You're just going to have to go all out and review a story that's normally widely regarded as terrible.
Yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. That's the end of this episode. And join us again next week. We will be back, and as mentioned, we will be doing a review of the season 5 2-part finale.
Can I say it because it's my favourite story? I want to do it.
Go for it.
Yeah, join us next week. We'll be joined once again by. Am I allowed to say who we're joined by? I think they know.
We
are joined by Will. He's coming back because he wanted to come back specifically for this one, and we are reviewing The Pandorica Opens and The Big Bang, which, if you've seen the little icons and the avatars that were made for us as the podcast host a week or so ago, you will know it's my all-time favourite Doctor Who story. So it's going to be very interesting.
Thanks again for joining us. Join us next week for Pandorica Opens Big Bang, as mentioned. Andy, you can find at Andrew.
I have something else to add to this actually now. This is the exciting thing. So yeah, you can find me on Twitter. That is just Andy Kent 1996. You can find me on YouTube on just my YouTube account, which is just Andrew Kent. No update on the gaming channel, but a new exciting development is that hopefully within the next couple of weeks, you will be able to start listening to my new podcast, which I'm doing with my boyfriend Phil and as a couple, our best friend who lives in the flat above us, Sarah. And quite fittingly, we've named it the We Pay for Your Floor podcast. It's just us having a laugh as the three of us being absolute idiots.
You cheating on us with another podcast? How could you?
Well, let me explain the name of the podcast. We have an on-running joke with Sarah. I can't remember how it started, because I think it was between Sarah and Phil. But basically, we live in the flat below her, and I think she was doing yoga or something. She was doing something that was a little bit noisy, and she came down late that evening. And Phil was like, "I don't know what you're doing, but can you be more careful with your floor, please? We pay for that. Like, obviously, it's a ceiling above us." And now it's just a thing. It's now a thing that we talk about, the fact that we pay for her floor, even though we don't. So that is the birth of the podcast.
Well, just as long as you're ready to take the complete reins of this next week for the season 5 finale story, that's all good, and I look forward to hearing your podcast. So that's great. Ben, where can people find you, by the way, on the internet?
Well, I mean, yeah. Give me a sec. I forgot what Max's Twitter handle is.
I believe your Twitter handle
it.
It's at Timeless B Tyler, I think.
It is.
Is it? I can't. Yeah, it is. At Timeless B Tyler. That's me.
Yeah, he's a good follow on Twitter as well, and he gets some unnecessary crap, especially lately from some idiots. But he's actually a really, really good follow on Twitter and very entertaining and sweet. So, we'll be back next week. Until then, goodbye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.